I found out my parents called me a freeloader after I paid for their life. So I cut them off. My name is Ava Monroe. I'm 28 years old now. But for most of my life, I felt like a ghost haunting my own family. Growing up with a golden child sibling is like living in someone else's spotlight. You're there. You breathe the same air. You sit at the same table. But somehow, every beam of warmth bends around you and lands on them. For me, that person was my older sister, Erika. Erika was the kind of girl people remembered after meeting her once. Star athlete. Straight-A student. Popular, without trying. The kind of daughter relatives bragged about, even when she wasn't in the room. My parents looked at her like she had personally invented sunlight. And me, I was the quiet one in the corner holding a report card. No one asked to see. Our house was always full. Family barbecues. Birthday dinners. Neighborhood cookouts. Holiday parties. My father would stand by the grill laughing loudly. My mother would rush around with trays of food. And Erika would sit in the middle of it all, like a queen holding court. Everyone wanted to hear about her soccer games. Her medals. Her scholarships. Her future. I remember being 10 years old, clutching a science test with a perfect score on it. I had folded it carefully so the red 100% wouldn't smudge. I waited until Dad turned away from the grill. Dad, look what Before I could finish, Mom came out carrying a cake. For Erika, she shouted. Tournament champion. Everyone cheered. Someone put a paper crown on Erika's head. My father lifted her off the ground, like she was still 5 years old. I stood there with my test in my hand, until the paper went soft from my sweaty fingers. That was my childhood in one picture. I wasn't a bad kid. I didn't sneak out. I didn't fail classes. I didn't cause trouble. I did well in school. I read books. I helped clean after parties. No one thanked me for. But in that house, being good quietly didn't count. Erika had shelves for trophies. My mother kept scrapbooks of her newspaper clippings, team photos, certificates, ribbons. I had a cardboard box in the attic. Half my drawings, essays, and school awards ended up there, bent under old Christmas decorations. The worst part wasn't just being ignored. It was watching everyone act like Erika was proof my parents had done something right, while I was treated like background noise. At every family gathering, someone would say, Erika has such a bright future. Or, that girl is going places. And I would sit there thinking, I'm sitting right here. But after a while, you stop saying it. You stop raising your hand inside your own life. You start wondering if maybe they're right. Maybe there is something less impressive about you. Something smaller. Something people can't love as easily. There was only one person who never made me feel that way. Great Aunt Sharon. She wasn't loud. She didn't compete for attention. She had silver hair, soft hands, and this calm way of looking at me like I was not an interruption. During parties, when everyone surrounded Erika, Aunt Sharon would find me. What are you reading? Sweetheart, how's school? What did you learn this week? And she actually listened. One summer afternoon, I was hiding behind the garage with a library book pressed against my knees. The party inside was too loud. Erika had just scored some winning goal. And every adult in the yard had retold the story like it was breaking news. Aunt Sharon found me sitting in the dirt. Instead of dragging me back, she lowered herself beside me. What's this one about? She asked. I showed her the cover. A girl who finds out she has magic? Aunt Sharon smiled. Sounds like my kind of girl. I shrugged. She's not really special at first. Most special girls aren't noticed at first, she said. That doesn't mean they aren't special. I looked at her then, because something in her voice felt like a secret. She touched my shoulder gently. Don't let this family make you small. Ava. I didn't understand how badly I needed those words until years later. Back then, I just nodded and swallowed the lump in my throat. When I started high school, I thought maybe things would change. New building, new teachers, new people, maybe I could finally be Ava. Not Erica Monroe's little sister. That hope lasted less than one day. "Oh, you're Erica's sister," a teacher said while checking attendance. She was incredible. Big shoes to fill. Big shoes. That became my whole high school experience. Coaches asked if I played soccer like Erica. Teachers expected me to be outgoing like Erica. Classmates assumed I had the same confidence. The same charm. The same easy way of making people care. I didn't. I sat near the back. I took notes. I studied late. I asked questions after class because I genuinely wanted to understand things. Junior year. I spent nearly 2 weeks on a biology project about cell division. I researched until my eyes burned. I built diagrams. I rewrote every paragraph until it sounded right. Mrs. Baker handed it back with an A+ and said, "Ava, this is excellent work. You went above and beyond." For one bright second, I felt seen. I walked home holding that project like it was glass. Mom was in the kitchen. I phone pressed to her ear. Erica's coach said she has real leadership potential," she said. Smiling, I waited. 10 minutes, 15. When she finally hung up, I placed the project on the table. I got the highest grade in class. She glanced at it for half a second. "That's nice, honey." Then she picked up her phone again. Just like that. The light went out. That night, I slid the project into my drawer and stared at the ceiling until the room blurred. I didn't want to be Erica. I didn't want trophies, or applause, or a crown at a backyard party. I just wanted my parents to look at me once and mean it. But they never did. And the sad thing is, eventually, I stopped expecting them to. By the time senior year rolled around, I had stopped hoping my parents would suddenly wake up and notice me. I still worked hard. I still stayed late after school. I still earned grades that should have made any parent proud. I just stopped expecting anyone at home to care. Ironically, school had become the one place where I finally felt like I mattered. I joined a few clubs. Made friends who liked books and documentaries instead of parties. And slowly built a small world that belonged to me. For the first time, I wasn't simply Erica's little sister. I was Ava. There was one history paper I remember clearly. We had to write about World War II. And I spent nearly 3 weeks researching every detail. I rewrote the introduction 6 times because it never sounded right. When Mr. Davis handed it back, he smiled. "This is one of the best papers I've read all year." Then he read a section of it out loud to the class. I should have felt embarrassed. Instead, I felt 10 feet tall. I rushed home with that paper folded carefully in my backpack. Dad was sitting in the living room. "Dad, guess what?" my teacher said. "Hold on," he interrupted, eyes fixed on his phone. "Did you see the pictures from Erica's game? She got another trophy." I stood there for a few seconds. Then I quietly walked back to my room. At some point, disappointment becomes routine. You stop crying about it. You just keep moving. Then came college applications. I poured everything into them. Years of good grades. Extracurricular activities. Volunteer work. I put my entire life into those applications because I wanted one thing. A chance to build a future that belonged to me. Then, one afternoon, the acceptance letter arrived. State University. Business program. I remember reading the words 3 times because I couldn't believe they were real. I had done it. I ran all the way home. Mom was in the kitchen flipping through a magazine. Dad was watching television. I got in, I announced. They both looked up. I got accepted to State University. "Oh," Mom said. "That's nice." Dad nodded once. "Good for you." Then he looked back at the television. A few seconds later, Mom asked, "Did Erica hear back from any colleges yet?" That was it. No hug. No congratulations. No celebration. Nothing. I went upstairs and sat on my bed with the acceptance letter in my hands. I should have been happy. Instead, I felt strangely empty. That was the moment something changed inside me. I realized I could spend the rest of my life chasing their approval and never catch it. Or I could stop running. The problem was money. State university wasn't cheap. And my parents hadn't saved a single dollar for me. I applied for scholarships and grants. I worked part-time. I made spreadsheets and budgets. It still wasn't enough. I started preparing myself for disappointment. Maybe I'd take a gap year. Maybe I'd work full-time first. Maybe college just wasn't going to happen. Then, Aunt Sharon invited me over one Saturday afternoon. Her little house smelled like fresh bread as always. I was helping her wash dishes when she suddenly asked, "How are things with college?" I shrugged. I got accepted. That's wonderful. It is. I just don't know if I can afford it. She became very quiet. Then she dried her hands and turned toward me. Ava, you've worked too hard to give up now. I smiled weakly. Sometimes life doesn't really care how hard you work. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said something that changed my life. I have savings. I blinked. What? I've been putting money away for years. I want to use it to pay for your tuition. I stared at her. The room suddenly felt too small. No. I can't ask you to do that. You didn't ask? But that's your money. She smiled softly. And you're my family. I couldn't speak. I never had children of my own. She continued. But if I had a daughter, I'd want her to chase her dreams. I'd want her to have opportunities. Tears filled my eyes. Ava, you deserve this chance. I tried to say, thank you. But my voice cracked. She pulled me into a hug. For the first time in years. I cried. Not because I was hurt. Because someone believed in me. Someone had finally chosen me. The next few weeks passed in a blur. Housing applications. Class registration. Financial paperwork. I couldn't stop smiling. I was going to college. I was really going. And my parents knew absolutely nothing about it. Not because I was hiding it. They simply never asked. A couple of weeks before I was supposed to leave, we were having dinner together. As usual, the conversation revolved around Erica, her games, her friends, her future. Then suddenly, Mom looked at me. So, Ava, what are you planning to do after graduation? I nearly laughed. After 18 years. She was finally asking. I'm going to State University. The table went quiet. Dad frowned. What? I got accepted into their business program. When did that happen? A few months ago. Mom blinked. How are you paying for it? I took a deep breath. Aunt Sharon is helping me. Helping. She's paying my tuition. The silence that followed felt dangerous. Dad's face hardened. Sharon's giving you money. Yes. That's ridiculous. I looked at him. If she has money to spare, it should go to Erica. He said. Your sister needs a car. I honestly thought I'd heard him wrong. What? College is expensive. Erica needs transportation. I couldn't believe it. I had just announced that my future was finally possible. And somehow, this was still about Erica. Mom nodded. Your sister's opportunities are important too. Something inside me snapped. I'm important too. The words came out louder than I intended. Everyone froze. This is my future we're talking about. I've worked for this my entire life. Ava. No, I said. Standing up. Aunt Sharon believes in me. She wants to help me. Why can't you? The room went completely silent. Even Erica looked uncomfortable. I realized something then. They weren't shocked because I was angry. They were shocked because I had finally spoken. I looked at all three of them. I'm going to college. I said quietly. With or without your support. Then I walked away. That night I packed another box. A few days later, Aunt Sharon drove me to campus. As the university buildings appeared in the distance, my stomach twisted with nerves. You okay? She asked. I nodded. No. I admitted, a second later. She laughed softly. Good. Big dreams are supposed to scare you. I smiled. When we pulled up to my dorm, I got out and looked at the campus. It felt enormous, terrifying, beautiful, like standing at the beginning of an entirely different life. I hugged Aunt Sharon tightly. Thank you. I whispered. She kissed my forehead. Go prove to yourself who you are. Sweetheart. As I watched her drive away, I had no idea that college would change everything. I didn't know I'd finally learn what it felt like to belong. And I definitely didn't know that one day, the same family that barely noticed I existed would come begging for my help. Starting college felt like stepping into another universe. I had never lived away from home before. Suddenly, I was surrounded by thousands of students, all carrying boxes into dorm rooms and trying to figure out who they were supposed to become. For the first time in my life, nobody knew me as Erica Monroe's little sister. I was just Ava. That felt strange and wonderful. I remember standing outside my dorm after Aunt Sharon left, taking a deep breath and thinking, this is mine. The first week was overwhelming. Orientation, new classes, endless paperwork, and 100 names I couldn't remember. I wasn't exactly outgoing, so making friends terrified me. But everyone seemed just as nervous as I was. My roommate, Daniel Carter, changed everything. He was one of those people who could make friends with a brick wall. Easy smile, endless energy, and somehow always knew where the free food on campus was. On our second day, he threw a pillow at me. You've been reading for 3 straight hours. So you're going to become part of the furniture. I laughed. Come on, he said. There's a movie night. I have class tomorrow. So does everyone else. Against my better judgment, I went, and somehow, that tiny decision became the beginning of my first real group of friends. For the first time, I belonged somewhere, but I never forgot why I was there. I had been given an opportunity that nearly slipped through my fingers. I wasn't going to waste it. I sat in the front row. I arrived early. I stayed late. I treated every class like it mattered. Because to me, it did. One professor changed everything for me. Dr. Harrison Collins. He taught Introduction to Business, and somehow made even the driest subjects fascinating. One day I raised my hand to ask a question. I expected him to give a quick answer and move on. Instead, he smiled. Excellent question. Ava. Excellent. Such a small word. But I wasn't used to hearing words like that directed at me. After class, I walked back to my dorm, grinning like an idiot. Daniel noticed immediately. What happened? A professor said. I asked a good question. He stared at me. That's it. You don't understand. No. He laughed. I really don't. But to me, it mattered. Because all my life I had been invisible. Every small moment of recognition felt enormous. I threw myself into my studies. I worked harder than anyone I knew. Sometimes too hard. Daniel would find me buried under textbooks. You need sleep. I need to finish this. You said that yesterday. I'll sleep after finals. He'd roll his eyes. You realize that's not how being alive works. Right. But secretly, I appreciated him. He cared. That was still something I wasn't used to. During my second year, Dr. Collins assigned a group project. Normally, I hated group projects. I always ended up doing all the work. But this group was different. There was Emily, who was incredibly organized. Tyler, who could solve any technical problem. And Marcus, who could sell ice to a snowman. Together, we created a business proposal for a late-night campus delivery service. For weeks we worked together, eating terrible vending machine snacks and arguing over presentation slides. The night before our presentation, I barely slept. Public speaking terrified me. The next morning, my hands were shaking. You'll be fine, Emily said. I won't. You will. I might throw up. Marcus grinned. If you do, aim away from me. I laughed despite myself. When we stood in front of the class, something unexpected happened. Everything clicked. I delivered my section perfectly. No stuttering. No panic. No freezing. When we finished, the class applauded. Actually applauded. Dr. Collins nodded approvingly. Excellent work. I walked out of that classroom feeling 10 feet tall. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the girl in the background. I was capable. I was valuable. It mattered. College changed me. Not overnight, but little by little, I became more confident. I started speaking up. I made friends. I learned to trust myself. And by graduation, I wasn't simply surviving, I was thriving. After college, I found a steady job. Nothing glamorous, just enough to pay bills and save money. But I had bigger dreams. I'd always loved cooking. As a child, I used to sit in Aunt Sharon's kitchen and watch her bake bread and make soup from scratch. Food meant comfort. It meant warmth. It meant home. One night after work, I found myself sketching ideas for a restaurant. A small place, cozy, welcoming. The idea wouldn't leave me alone. For months, I planned, saved, budgeted. Then finally, I took the leap. I opened my first restaurant. It wasn't fancy. The tables didn't match perfectly. The sign outside was slightly crooked. But it was mine. The first few months were brutal. I worked 18-hour days. I cooked. I cleaned. I handled payroll. I fixed broken equipment. I barely slept. But I loved every second of it. Because every exhausted night ended with the same thought. I built this. And people came. Then more people came. Then even more. The restaurant became popular. A year later, I opened a second location. Then another. Then another. Suddenly, I owned several successful restaurants. I had employees, managers, accountants, a business that was thriving. I was finally living the life I had dreamed about. Then my phone rang. Mom? I almost didn't answer. Sweetheart, she said brightly. How are you? That tone immediately made me suspicious. I'm fine. We're so proud of you. I nearly dropped the phone. Proud. That was new. Then she sighed dramatically. It's actually about your sister. Of course it was. Apparently, Erica had been struggling. She had bounced between jobs, quit several positions, burned bridges. Now no one wanted to hire her. We were hoping, Mom said carefully, that maybe you could help her. I closed my eyes. You want me to hire Erica? Just until she gets back on her feet. I should have said no. After everything. I really should have. Instead, Isail, fine. Oh. Thank you. But she starts at the bottom. No special treatment. Of course. Spoiler alert. There was absolutely an expectation of special treatment when Erica arrived for her first day. She acted as though she were doing me a favor. I can't believe you're putting me in a waitress uniform. It's a restaurant, I said. Everyone wears one. She looked offended. Still, she did the work. Not exceptionally well. Not terribly. Just enough. For a while, things remained calm. Then came another phone call. This time it was Dad. We need to talk. His voice sounded serious. We're having financial problems. I already knew where this was going. Over the years, my parents had poured nearly everything into Erica. Failed business ventures. Unfinished college plans. Bad investments. Money disappeared as quickly as it arrived. Now they had nothing left. We need help, Dad said quietly. I stared out my office window. Part of me wanted to laugh. Part of me wanted to cry. Because somehow, after a lifetime of being overlooked, I had become their backup plan. I could have refused. Maybe I should have. Instead, I agreed to send them money every month. Enough to keep them afloat. Enough so they wouldn't lose their home. I told myself it was the right thing to do. But every transfer left a bitter taste in my mouth. What hurt wasn't the money. It was the realization that they still saw me as a resource. Not a daughter. Not someone to be proud of. As solution, meanwhile, Erica still worked at the restaurant. Still lived without consequences. Still somehow remained the center of my parents' universe. Sometimes I'd sit alone in my office after closing and wonder how we had all ended up here. I had built something real, something successful, and yet somehow I was still cleaning up the messes created by the golden child. I had no idea that things were about to get much worse, because one ordinary afternoon, a phone call from Aunt Sharon was going to change everything, and after that call, nothing in my family would ever be the same again. One afternoon I was sitting in my office, going over invoices and planning next month's budget when my phone rang. It was Aunt Sharon. She rarely called during the day. Immediately, I knew something was wrong. Hi, Aunt Sharon. Her voice sounded hesitant. Ava, sweetheart. I need you to watch something. What happened? It's a video from a family party last weekend. I frowned. A video. Someone posted it online. I think you need to see it. A strange feeling settled in my stomach. What is it about? There was a pause. Just watch it first, she said quietly. Then call me. A few seconds later, a message appeared on my phone. I opened the link. The video started with loud music and people laughing. Then I saw them. My parents, both clearly drunk. My mother was holding a wine glass and swaying slightly, while several relatives stood around her. I almost closed the video. Then I heard her speak. You all think Ava built those restaurants by herself? People laughed. But honestly, she said with a sloppy grin, it's really because of Erica. I froze. My mother continued. Erica's the real genius. She's the one who practically runs everything. Ava just manages things. I blinked. Surely I had heard wrong. Then, my father stepped into the frame. And don't forget, he slurred, pointing toward the camera. We gave Ava money to start those businesses. The room behind me suddenly felt very quiet. We helped her get where she is, he continued. But she never appreciates us. Ungrateful little freeloader. Freeloader. The word hit me like a slap. I replayed it in my head. Ungrateful. Freeloader. I sat perfectly still. Then, my mother laughed again. Erica could have had her own business. You know, she's just too kind. She lets Ava have all the credit. More laughter. Someone raised a glass. I stared at the screen in disbelief. I had built every single restaurant from the ground up. I had worked 18-hour days. I had risked everything. My parents had never given me a dime. And now, they were rewriting my entire life. By the end of the video, my hands were shaking. I wasn't angry at first. I was hurt. Deeply. Painfully hurt. Because even after everything, as a part of me had still believed there were limits. Limits to how unfair they could be. Limits to how much they could diminish me. Apparently, I was wrong. I called my mother immediately. She answered cheerfully. Hi. Sweetheart. I saw the video. Silence. What video? She asked. I almost laughed. The party. The one where you called me a freeloader. Another pause. Then, she gave a nervous laugh. Oh. That. My stomach twisted. That. We'd had a few drinks. Honey. We were joking. Joking. Don't be so sensitive. I closed my eyes. You told people that Erica built my business. Oh. Komion, you said you gave me money? It wasn't a big deal. It is to me. My voice was shaking now. I heard my father in the background asking who she was talking to. Then my mother sighed. You know how your father gets when he's been drinking? No. Don't do that. What? Don't blame alcohol. She went quiet. You meant every word. That's not true. Then why did you say it? No answer. I felt something inside me breaking. Not violently. Not dramatically. Just, finally, like a rope snapping after being pulled for too many years. You called me a freeloader. Ava, I paid your bills. Silence. I sent you money every month. Ava. Please. I gave Erica a job when nobody else would. Honey. We appreciate. No. You don't. I stood and walked to the window. For years I had been trying to earn love from people who had already decided I didn't deserve it. Suddenly, I was exhausted. Completely exhausted. I've spent my entire life chasing your approval. Ava, and it doesn't matter what I do. That's not fair. I actually laughed. Not fair. Tears filled my eyes. You ignored me my whole childhood. She didn't answer. You celebrated Erica's victories and forgot mine. Nothing. You wanted Aunt Sharon's money to go to Erica? Still nothing. And after everything, after all these years, you stand in front of people and call me a freeloader. I heard her crying softly. But for the first time, it didn't change anything. I can't do this anymore. What are you saying? I'm done. No. Sweetheart. Don't say that. I'm done paying your bills. Ava. Please. I'm done fixing problems I didn't create. Your father and I need you. I closed my eyes. There it was. Not, we love you. Not, we're sorry. Not, please, forgive us. We need you. Because that was all I had ever been to them. Useful. I took a slow breath. You don't need me, I said quietly. You need what I can give you. She started sobbing. We're your parents. And I was your daughter. The silence that followed was unbearable. I waited my entire life for you to see me. Ava, but you never did. I wiped my eyes. Don't call me anymore. Please. I'm serious. What about your father? What about Erica? I looked around my office. At the framed photos, the awards, the business I had built, the life I had created. Without them, I wish all of you the best. I said softly, but I'm choosing myself now. Then I hung up. A few minutes later, Aunt Sharon called. I saw the comments under the video, she said sadly. Everyone's talking about it. I sank into my chair. I'm so sorry. Sweetheart. I swallowed hard. I think I just lost my family. No, she said gently. You lost people who never appreciated you. I closed my eyes. You still have family. A tear slipped down my cheek. I knew exactly what she meant. For a long time, neither of us said anything. Finally she spoke. I'm proud of you, Ava. 4 simple words. Words I had wanted to hear my entire life. I started crying. Not because I was broken. Because I was finally free. After that day, I stopped sending money. I blocked their numbers. I let Erica find her own way. I let my parents deal with the consequences of their choices. And for the first time in my life, I stopped carrying everyone else's burdens. I focused on my restaurants, my friends, Aunt Sharon, my own happiness. The funny thing about cutting toxic people out of your life is that at first it feels like grief. Then one morning you wake up, and the world feels lighter. I spent years believing I was the invisible child, the forgotten daughter, the one who would never matter. I was wrong. You mattered. I always had. I just needed to stop asking the wrong people to prove it.